In 2008, on the world's biggest stage, a man won gold without being able to see. Mid-race, his goggles filled with water. No vision, no margin for error, one wrong stroke. And history would have ended right there. But instead of panicking, his body kept moving, stroke by stroke, breath by breath, as if his mind already knew the ending. That race didn't make him legendary. It exposed a secret most people never learn, because that victory wasn't decided in the pool. It was decided years earlier, in silence, with closed eyes. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The same mental system that won Olympic gold is already inside your brain. The only question is, why aren't you using it? 2008. Beijing Olympics, the biggest stage in the world. Under blinding lights and roaring noise, a swimming pool waits in silence. In one of the lanes stands a 23-year-old athlete, calm on the outside, carrying the weight of an entire world on his shoulders. Millions are watching. Every movement is being judged. Every second matters. He steps onto the starting block. The whistle blows. The race explodes forward. Powerful arms cut through water. Legs kick with machine-like rhythm. For a few seconds, everything is perfect. Trained, controlled, predictable. And then something goes wrong. Mid-race, water starts leaking into his goggles. For most swimmers, this is panic territory. Vision disappears. Direction becomes guesswork. One wrong stroke, one moment of fear, and years of training collapse in seconds. But something unusual happens here. Instead of panic, his body continues. Instead of fear, his rhythm remains steady. He cannot see the wall. He cannot see his competitors. Yet he keeps moving, stroke by stroke, breath by breath, not blindly, precisely. When he touches the wall, the stadium erupts. Gold medal, world record. The world celebrates talent, strength, and discipline. But what it didn't see was the real reason this moment was possible. Because this victory wasn't decided in that pool. It was decided years earlier, in complete darkness, inside a quiet room, with closed eyes. This wasn't luck. This wasn't magic. It was mental training, repeated so many times that the body obeyed even when the eyes failed. That athlete went on to become the most decorated Olympian in history, not with one medal, not with 5, but with a record so massive it redefined what human potential looks like. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people ignore. That same mental system has been used by world-class athletes, elite performers, legendary actors, and comeback kings across industries. Different lives, different struggles, same internal tool. Some used it to dominate sports. Some used it to escape poverty. Some used it to rebuild careers when the world had written them off. Yet almost nobody is taught how it actually works. Most people hear about it in half sentences. Motivational quotes, surface-level advice. Just imagine success. Think positive. Visualize your dreams. But if that were enough, everyone would be unstoppable. The truth is, most people visualize incorrectly and then blame themselves when nothing changes. This story isn't just about one Olympic race. It's about how the human brain can be trained to perform before the moment arrives. How fear can be replaced with automatic confidence. How chaos can be handled without panic. And most importantly, how this same process can be applied to your career, your confidence, and your future. But before understanding the technique, you need to understand the origin. Because the athlete you saw winning gold once hated the very thing that made him legendary. He wasn't born focused. He wasn't naturally calm. He wasn't even considered promising. In fact, as a child, experts believed he would never be able to concentrate on anything long enough to succeed. So, how does someone like that become mentally unbreakable? That's where the real journey begins. But here's the twist most people don't know. Before becoming unstoppable, this athlete was labeled a problem child, laughed at in school, and written off by teachers and doctors alike and the very weakness people mocked became the foundation of his dominance. Long before the medals, the cameras, and the applause, there was a restless child who couldn't sit still. In classrooms, he was known for all the wrong reasons. Teachers complained. Report cards were filled with warnings instead of praise. He doesn't focus. He gets distracted easily. He won't be able to concentrate on anything long-term. Doctors gave it a label: ADHD. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. At an age when most kids are learning confidence, he was learning something else, that something about him was wrong. He couldn't stay calm. He couldn't stay quiet. His mind was always racing. At school, classmates found an easy target. They mocked his appearance. They laughed at his ears. They gave him nicknames meant to shrink him. A child with low confidence, no direction, no sense of control. And then life hit harder. At just 9 years old, his parents separated. Home didn't feel stable anymore. School didn't feel safe. And inside his head, everything felt loud. This is usually the point where stories quietly end, where potential disappears, where labels become permanent. But one person refused to accept that ending: his mother. She didn't see a problem child. She saw unchanneled energy. So instead of forcing stillness, she searched for movement. Instead of suppressing his chaos, she tried to redirect it. That's how swimming entered his life. Not as a dream, not as a passion, as a solution. At first, he hated it. Cold water, endless laps, repetitive drills. But something strange happened inside the pool. For the first time, his mind slowed down. The noise reduced. The restlessness softened. Water gave his energy a direction. Then came the turning point. At age 11, he met a coach who saw beyond speed and strength. This coach noticed something others missed. Yes, the boy had talent. Yes, his body moved differently in water. But mentally? He cracked under pressure, lost focus during practice, got distracted easily. In competition, that weakness would destroy him. So the coach made a decision most people wouldn't. Instead of pushing harder physically, he chose to train the mind first, not with motivation, not with shouting, not with pressure, with calm. One evening, the coach handed the boy's mother a book, not about swimming, but about relaxation. He gave simple instructions. Every night before he sleeps, do 2 things. First, relax his body completely. Second, train his mind. That night, something new began. Lights off, room quiet. His mother guided him slowly. Relax your head, relax your shoulders, relax your arms, relax your legs. Piece by piece, his body learned something it had never known: stillness. And once the body was calm, the real training started. He was told to play a movie in his head, not imagination, not daydreaming. A detailed, realistic mental replay of his race, standing on the starting block, hearing the crowd, feeling the heat, hearing the whistle, diving into cold water, every stroke, every breath, every turn, winning, not once, not twice, every night, every morning, over and over. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people visualize success only when everything goes right. This coach did the opposite. He asked the boy to imagine failure. What if something goes wrong? What if your goggles break? What if you can't see? What if panic hits? Instead of avoiding fear, he rehearsed it. In his mind, every disaster had already happened and been conquered. By the time he faced real pressure, his brain had seen it all before. What others call mental toughness was actually mental familiarity. The mind wasn't reacting. It was executing. Years later, when water filled his goggles on the world's biggest stage, there was no shock. Only muscle memory, only rhythm, only trust. because the race had already been won hundreds of times inside his head. But here's the big question. Was this ability unique to him? Or was his brain responding to a scientific principle that anyone can use? Because if science proves this isn't talent, but training, then everything you believe about limits is about to change. What if the mind you're using right now can't actually tell whether something is real, vividly imagined? It sounds impossible, almost dangerous, but science says otherwise. Years after that Olympic race, researchers began asking the same question you're probably thinking right now. Was this athlete an exception, or did his training unlock a rule that applies to everyone? To find out, scientists ran an experiment that quietly changed how we understand the human brain. They gathered a group of piano players and divided them into 3 teams. The first group practiced physically, 2 hours a day, 5 days straight, real keyboards, real movement. The second group didn't touch a piano at all. They sat still, hands unmoving, eyes closed. Their task was simple but strange. Imagine playing the piano. Every finger movement, every key, every sound. The third group did nothing. No practice, no imagining, just waiting. After 5 days, scientists scanned their brains. Specifically, they looked at the motor cortex, the area responsible for movement and coordination. The results stunned everyone. The brains of the first group, the physical practice group, had grown stronger neural connections. That was expected, but the shock came from the second group. The people who only imagined playing the piano showed almost the same level of brain development, same expansion, same neural activation. The third group? No change at all. Let that sink in. The brain strengthened itself without any physical movement. Why? Because to the brain, a vividly imagined experience is almost identical to a real one. This explains something you've experienced before, even if you never realized it. Think about your favorite food. If someone describes it in detail, the smell, the steam, the texture, your mouth starts watering. The food isn't there, but your body reacts anyway. Or think about a movie. It's fake. The characters aren't real, yet you cry. Your heart races. Your chest tightens. Your brain doesn't care about logic. It responds to experience, real or imagined. This is where most people misunderstand visualization. They treat it like positive thinking. But it's not. Visualization is mental rehearsal. And when done correctly, it trains the brain before the moment arrives. Here's what actually happens inside your head. Every time you imagine an action vividly, your brain fires the same neurons it would use in real life. The more those neurons fire together, the stronger their connection becomes. Scientists call this neural wiring. In simple terms, your brain starts building paths, like walking through tall grass. The first time is hard. Thorns, resistance, effort. But walk the same path again and again. The grass flattens, the way becomes clear, movement becomes easy. That's exactly what happens when you visualize repeatedly. When the real moment arrives, your brain says, "I've been here before." So it doesn't panic. It doesn't freeze. It executes. That's why elite performers seem calm under pressure. Not because they're fearless, but because their brain is familiar with the situation. This is also why fear feels so real even when danger isn't. Your brain doesn't ask, "Is this actually happening?" It asks, "How real does this feel?" And here's the twist. If your brain can rehearse fear, it can rehearse confidence too. If it can replay failure, it can replay success. But only if you do it the right way. Because here's the harsh truth most motivational speakers won't tell you. 99% of people visualize wrong. They see blurry images. They skip emotions. They rush the process. And then they say, visualization doesn't work. It's like expecting muscle growth from lifting air once a week. The technique isn't weak. The execution is. The Olympic swimmer didn't just think positive. He trained his mind every day, with detail, emotion, repetition, and realism. And the same brain mechanism is sitting inside you right now, waiting. The question isn't if visualization works. The question is, are you activating the right systems inside your brain or just daydreaming? But here's where it gets even more powerful. Visualization doesn't just prepare you mentally. It reprograms what your brain notices in the real world. Opportunities, ideas, focus. Right now, thousands of things are happening around you. Sounds, movements, conversations, colors, opportunities, but you're only aware of a tiny fraction of them. Not because they don't exist, but because your brain has decided they're not important. This decision is made by a hidden system inside your brain called the reticular activating system, RAS. Think of it as a filter, a bouncer at the door of your attention. Its job is simple: decide what gets noticed and what gets ignored. You've experienced this before. The moment you decide you want something, a phone, a car, a job, you start seeing it everywhere. Suddenly, that exact model appears on the road, in ads, in other people's hands. The world didn't change. Your filter did. Your brain said, "This matters now." And once that decision is made, your awareness shifts. This is where visualization becomes dangerous in a good way. Because when you repeatedly visualize a goal, your brain starts tagging it as important, not emotionally, not motivationally. Biologically, your RAS activates, and once it does, 3 things happen automatically. First, you notice opportunities you previously ignored. Same environment, same people, same resources. But now your brain connects dots it couldn't see before. Second, your focus sharpens. Distractions don't disappear. They just stop pulling you. Third, your actions change without force. You don't need motivation. You don't need willpower. Your brain naturally nudges you toward aligned behavior. This is why elite performers often say, "I don't know. I just felt drawn to it. It wasn't luck. It was neurological alignment." This explains something strange about high achievers. They don't necessarily work harder. They work clearer. Their mind knows what to ignore. And that clarity is trained, not inherited. Remember the swimmer? Visualization didn't just prepare him for the race. It trained his brain to recognize rhythm, timing, stroke count, pressure moments. So when vision failed, his RAS still guided him. He wasn't guessing. He was following internal signals his brain had already prioritized. This is also why people stay stuck. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack resources, but because their brain is filtering for the wrong things. Fear, doubt, past failures, social noise. When you repeatedly think, "I'm not capable, I'll mess this up, this won't work for me," your RAS listens. And then it proves you right. It highlights obstacles, magnifies problems, hides solutions, not to punish you, but to protect consistency. Your brain's main job isn't success, it's familiarity. And visualization is how you tell it what normal should look like. That's why just saying affirmations doesn't work. Your brain doesn't respond to words. It responds to experienced meaning. When visualization is vivid, emotional, and repeated, your brain accepts it as reference. And once that happens, behavior follows. But there's still one more layer. Even if your brain notices opportunities, even if your focus improves, there's something else holding people back: the body. Because knowing what to do and being able to execute under pressure are not the same thing. That's where most people fail. They freeze, they hesitate, they overthink, and that's because their body hasn't been trained, even if their mind has. Which leads us to the third hidden effect of visualization, the one that makes actions feel automatic. What if your muscles could remember success before you ever perform? Because science shows they can. Most people think memory lives only in the mind, but the truth is, Your body remembers too. That's why you don't forget how to ride a bicycle. Why your fingers find the right keys without thinking. Why athletes react faster than conscious thought. This is called muscle memory. And here's what almost nobody tells you. Muscle memory doesn't require movement. It requires signals. Scientists proved this in another experiment, this time using basketball players. Once again, 3 groups. The first group practiced free throws physically. Shots, misses, adjustments. The second group never touched a basketball. They only imagined the motion, the grip, the lift, the release, the arc, the net. The third group did nothing. After weeks, the results were measured. The physical practice group improved by about 24%. The mental lonely group improved by 23%. Almost identical. The no practice group? No improvement. Why does this happen? Because when you imagine a movement vividly, your brain sends signals to your muscles. Not strong enough to create visible motion, but strong enough to create microcontractions. Tiny activations. Your muscles are being trained silently. This is why elite athletes close their eyes before competition. They're not calming themselves. They're programming execution. The swimmer didn't just imagine winning. He imagined the pull of water, the resistance, the timing of breaths, the count of strokes. So when his goggles filled with water, his body didn't ask for instructions. It already had them. This explains something important. Why do people perform well in practice, but fail under pressure? Because pressure shuts down conscious thinking. If your performance depends on thinking, you freeze. But if your performance is stored in the body, you flow. Visualization transfers control from conscious effort to automatic execution. That's why confidence feels different from motivation. Motivation is mental. Confidence is embodied familiarity. This also explains why people sabotage themselves at the last moment. They know what to do. They've planned it, but their body hasn't rehearsed it. So when the moment arrives, hesitation takes over. Visualization fixes this, not by forcing courage, but by removing novelty. The brain doesn't fear difficulty. It fears the unknown. And visualization turns unknown into known. But here's the mistake most people make. They visualize the result, not the process. They see success, but skip the struggle. They imagine applause, but avoid effort. This creates fantasy, not readiness. Elite performers do the opposite. They rehearse discomfort. They imagine fatigue, pressure, distraction, mistakes, and then visualize themselves staying calm through it. This trains emotional regulation, not just movement. That's why the swimmer didn't panic. Panic was unfamiliar. Calm was practiced. Now, here's the uncomfortable part. Visualization doesn't work if your body is tense. Stress blocks signal clarity. That's why relaxation always comes first. Before visualization, the body must enter a calm state, deep breathing, slow rhythm, relaxed muscles. Once tension drops, the subconscious opens. And that's when visualization becomes powerful. Because now you're not thinking the experience, you're living it internally. Which brings us to the most common failure point. Even people who visualize regularly often see no results. Not because they're inconsistent, not because they lack belief, but because they're vague. They say things like, I want to be successful, I want confidence, I want a better life. The brain doesn't understand vague. It understands specific experience. And that's exactly what we'll break down next. If your brain needs detail to respond, then vague dreams are useless. Your brain is powerful, but it's also literal. It doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to instructions. And this is where most people silently sabotage their own visualization. They think they're practicing, but they're feeding their brain blurry signals. I want success. I want confidence. I want a better life. These aren't goals. They're noise. Your brain can't act on abstract words. It needs scenes, moments, actions. Think of your brain like GPS navigation. If you enter somewhere nice, it won't move, but give it an exact location, it starts recalculating routes instantly. Elite performers understand this. They don't visualize becoming successful. They visualize specific moments of success. The swimmer didn't imagine winning. He imagined the exact time on the clock, the stroke count in each lap, the moment his fingers hit the wall. Nothing was left to chance. This is why clarity matters more than motivation. Motivation pushes, clarity pulls. And clarity comes from specific visualization. Here's how to do it properly. First, define the exact outcome, not emotionally, logistically. If it's a job, don't imagine getting hired. Imagine walking into the building, smiling at the receptionist, sitting calmly in the waiting area, shaking hands with confidence, answering questions clearly, hearing the final words, walking out with certainty. Second, engage all 5 senses, not just sight, sound. What do you hear? Voices? Applause? Silence? Touch? What do you feel? Texture? Temperature? Pressure? Smell. Is there a scent connected to the environment? Movement. How does your body move? Upright? Relaxed? Strong? Emotion. What are you feeling in that moment? Pride, gratitude. Emotion is the glue. Without it, neural connections stay weak. With it, they lock in. This is why emotional memories stay vivid for years. Your brain wires emotion and experience together. Visualization must do the same. Third, rehearse realistic effort. Not fantasy. Don't skip difficulty. Visualize fatigue, pressure, discomfort, unexpected challenges. Then visualize yourself staying composed. This trains resilience, not optimism. That's why the swimmer could perform blind, because blindness wasn't new. It had been rehearsed. Now here's the mistake many committed people make. They visualize correctly, but only once in a while. The brain doesn't change through intensity. It changes through repetition. Small sessions. Daily. Consistency beats passion. 5 minutes daily is better than 1 hour once a week. Why? Because repetition tells the brain, this matters. And once the brain believes something matters, it reallocates energy. It adjusts priorities. It rewires behavior. But there's one more problem. Even with clarity, even with repetition, many people still struggle. They visualize perfectly, then sabotage themselves with doubt. They imagine success, then immediately think, but this won't happen for me. This inner contradiction is deadly, like pressing the accelerator and brake together. Visualization programs forward movement, self-doubt cancels it. The brain receives mixed signals. Result? Stagnation. That's why belief must be built gradually. You don't start by visualizing miracles. You start by visualizing achievable wins, small progress, small confidence boosts. Then scale. Belief grows from evidence. Visualization creates evidence internally. Action confirms it externally. And when both align, momentum becomes unstoppable. Which leads us to the final piece. Visualization alone isn't enough. Without action, it becomes fantasy. Without visualization, action becomes blind effort. But when combined correctly, they create something rare. So what happens when visualization and action finally align? Not motivation, not hype, but unstoppable clarity. By now, one thing should be clear. Visualization is not magic. It's not wishing, and it's definitely not sitting still and hoping life changes. Visualization is preparation. It prepares your mind, it prepares your focus, it prepares your body. But preparation alone doesn't win races. Execution does. This is where many people quietly fail. They learn visualization. They practice it. They feel inspired. And then they wait. They expect life to move. But life doesn't move for clarity. It moves for action. Think of visualization like a GPS. It shows you the destination. It calculates the best route. It reroutes when obstacles appear. But it doesn't drive the car. You still have to grab the steering wheel. You still have to press the accelerator. Elite performers understand this balance. The swimmer didn't just imagine swimming. He trained every day. He repeated drills. He built stamina. Visualization didn't replace effort. It directed it. That's the difference. Most people work hard, but in the wrong direction. They hustle, but without alignment. They exhaust themselves without progress. Visualization fixes direction. Action creates movement. Together, they create momentum. But here's the final mistake that holds people back. They treat visualization as something separate from life. A ritual, a technique, a session. High performers don't. They use visualization as a daily operating system. Before difficult conversations, before presentations, before workouts, before decisions. They run a mental preview. Not to fantasize, but to stabilize emotion. Because emotion decides performance. Pressure doesn't destroy performance. Unmanaged emotion does. Visualization gives you emotional rehearsal. So when stress hits, your nervous system recognizes the moment and stays calm. This is why confident people seem unfazed. Not because they don't care, but because they've been there before mentally. Now, here's something most people don't realize. Your subconscious doesn't respond to future tense. It responds to experienced reality. That's why visualization works best when paired with gratitude. Instead of thinking, I will be successful someday, you feel, this is happening, not arrogantly, not delusionally, but emotionally. Gratitude tells the brain, this state is safe, and the brain moves you towards safety. This is also why consistency matters more than duration. 5 focused minutes every day is more powerful than one long session once a month. Why? Because daily repetition keeps the brain aligned. Miss a day no problem, quit mentally problem. Visualization is a lifestyle shift, not a shortcut. And here's the final truth. Everyone visualizes whether they realize it or not. Some visualize failure. Some visualize rejection. Some replay past mistakes. The brain doesn't judge. It simply rehearses what you feed it. So the real question is, what are you rehearsing daily? Because the future you step into is usually the one you've practiced for. But here's the twist. There's a simple daily visualization habit that can reprogram an entire year, not in weeks, but starting in a single day. Most people think change happens slowly, year by year, habit by habit, mistake by mistake, but that's not entirely true. Real change doesn't begin with action. It begins with alignment, and alignment can happen in a single day. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You already know what to do. You already know how to improve your life. Yet, overthinking, procrastination, self-doubt, and fear keep repeating. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack discipline, but because your conscious goals and your subconscious programming are not aligned. One wants growth, the other wants safety. And whenever they clash, safety wins. Visualization works because it fixes this conflict. It speaks directly to the subconscious, without force, without struggle. But only if you avoid the biggest mistakes. Let's expose them. Mistake number 1, negative self-talk. Imagine driving a car with one foot on the accelerator and one on the brake. That's what visualization with self-doubt looks like. You visualize success, then immediately think, this won't work for me. The brain cancels the command, the fix. Replace doubt, not with fake positivity, but with possibility. Not, I'm the best. But, if others learn this, I can too. Belief doesn't come first. Small wins create belief. Mistake number 2, mechanical visualization. When visualization becomes routine without emotion, it loses power. Emotion is what wires memories deeply. That's why you remember your first heartbreak, but forget random school lectures. If your visualization feels flat, refresh it. Change the scene, change the angle, change the emotion. Your brain responds to novelty plus feeling. Mistake number 3, no action. Visualization prepares, action confirms. Without action, visualization becomes fantasy. Without visualization, action becomes blind effort. Both are incomplete alone. Together, they're unstoppable. The Daily Reset Habit Game Changer. Every morning, before touching your phone, do this. Close your eyes for 3 to 5 minutes. Mentally walk through your day. Meetings, tasks, challenges, conversations. Visualize yourself handling each calmly and confidently, not perfectly composed. Then ask one question. What is the best possible version of today? That's it. This habit doesn't motivate you. It prepares your nervous system. And preparation beats motivation every time. People who do this consistently don't rely on willpower. Their brain already knows what to do. Why this changes everything. Your brain doesn't respond to lectures. It responds to experience. Visualization gives it experience before reality arrives. That's why. Athletes rehearse. Speakers preview. Performers visualize. They don't wait to react. They arrive prepared. And the best part? You don't need talent. You don't need resources. You don't need permission. Just consistency. You are already visualizing every day. The only question is, are you rehearsing fear or rehearsing confidence? Because your future is rarely accidental. It's practiced. If one video can shift your mindset, imagine what one focused day can do. Give yourself one day not for information, but for transformation. One day to rewire your thinking. One day to reset your clarity. One day to align your mind and action. Change the year by changing the starting point. Your move. The moral of this story is, success is not created in the moment of action. It is created in the moments of preparation. The mind does not wait for reality to shape it. It shapes reality through repetition, clarity, and belief. When you visualize with intention, emotion, and discipline, your brain learns before your body moves. Your fear turns into familiarity, and pressure turns into calm execution. Those who win are not luckier. They are mentally prepared. If you can see it clearly, feel it deeply, and act on it consistently, you don't just dream of a better future. You train yourself to step into it. See it. Prepare for it. Get it. If this story made you pause, if it made you believe, even for a moment, that your life can change, don't let that moment fade. Tonight, when everything is quiet, close your eyes. Visualize the life you truly want. Not someday, your life. And tomorrow, take one small action toward it. Just one. Because the mind you train today decides the life you live tomorrow. If you want more stories that rewire your mindset and unlock the strongest version of you, subscribe to Grandma Inspires. And remember this, if one video can create a shift inside you, imagine what one full day of focused transformation can do. Give me one day and change your entire year. We'll meet again in the next video. Until then, stay happy, spread happiness. I love you all.